Hey there, friends and enemies, JoPa here again, and today I want to talk about what I think is the next big wave in video games, and that is the extraction shooter. There are a ton of new titles coming to the genre in the next few years, and much like the Battle Royale and looter shooter over the past couple years, I think a couple entries are going to rise to the top while a bunch of others struggle to find their footing. So let me talk about why I think certain ones will be successful while others struggle, which ones are on the horizon, and all that kind of good stuff. So, if you didn't know, extraction shooters were made popular by Escape from Tarkov, but that is a game that is one, only on PC, and two, is very technical, very slow paced. So, I know other games have already tried to implement their own version, like the DMZ and Warzone, like Hazard Zone and Battlefield, but those were both half-hearted attempts at the extraction shooter. None of them really got the attention and focus necessary in order for them to be the massive successes and follow suit after Escape from Tarkov. So that's been a big struggle. But now we have a bunch of new ones on the way. First off, already rated in certain countries, it looks like the Division Heartland is the next extraction shooter that we'll see in the coming months. That is one that I think people have high hopes for, but it's already been delayed quite a few times, and we haven't seen updated footage in a bit of time, so it has a lot of folks worried. Plus, with the resurgence of the Division 2 a little bit, there is a wonder if they are going to really commit to this game in the same way that they would a Division 3, for example. So that's really where the struggle lies with the Division Heartland. The framework is there for a successful game. We saw survival in the Division 1 be a ton of fun and have similar ideas to extraction shooters as well. So they already have the blueprint for how this can be successful. The key is going to be making it rewarding over the long term, while also continuing the replayability and making it balanced in a way that makes extraction shooters fun. Because extraction shooters excel when you have PvP, but also PvE, and a balance between the two that makes it feel like you're competing against real players, but you also have objectives to complete at the same time. And I do think the Division Heartland is one that is well balanced to do both of those. Contrary to that, we have Hawked, which is in early access as we speak, and that's a game that I think has a ton of potential too, but doesn't have the same backing or history that the Division Heartland has, and so they're going to be trying to grow over the course of time. It's a more cartoony look, more cartoony environment to the extraction shooter, and that's what could separate it, but I don't know if that one will ever reach the heights of the top of the list extraction shooters. Others that we have also being worked on, Marathon from Bungie. That one doesn't seem to be releasing until 2025 after the dust has settled on the final shape for Destiny 2, and there's a lot of potential there. The gunplay for Bungie games always feels pretty good. It is a more sci-fi futuristic take on the extraction shooter, so it could separate itself in that way, and we know Bungie is very good at the graphics, the cinematics, all of that kind of good stuff that could really separate Marathon from other options. Plus, it's an established IP where they have a rich history to draw from that fans of previous Marathon games might jump into and be excited to check it out. However, with the recent struggles of Destiny 2, people are down on Bungie as a whole. They recently went through a bunch of layoffs, so this is a game that, while the potential is definitely there for it to be a banger, it also, because it comes out in 2025, might fall into a crowded market that it doesn't have a place to really fit in. Plus, we don't know how they're going to keep the game going over the long term, whether they're going to follow a seasonal model or just kind of an ongoing update cycle with DLC and the like. So that's something that remains to be seen as well. Then we've got Dr. Disrespect's Midnight Society game, and that one is questionable as well. It looks like it's got a lot of support from content creators and high-level players. They are really going for a very skill-based type of game, and it looks like that's another one that might be PC only for the most part. And overall, it's a game that I think could definitely find some success. I think a lot of content creators will push that game pretty heavily, but there isn't a foundation, because the studio is brand new, for them to learn and grow in the same way that a studio that already has the framework will be able to do so. So there's still a ways to go before we know more. They've had their dead drops, which are essentially just sneak peeks at the game, and they've looked pretty solid overall, and every one has been better than the last. So again, I think there is reason to be excited, but there is still some concerns there as well. Then we get to Arc Raiders. This is one that I find very fascinating, because originally it was supposed to be a looter shooter, but they've transitioned to make it an extraction shooter. And I think that's a good call if they weren't sold on the looter shooter aspect. Looter shooters require significant amounts of content, whether it's endgame dungeons, raids, or something like that, whereas an extraction shooter needs good maps, replayability through challenging activities and different stuff like that, but it doesn't need the same amount of depth of content. It just needs the depth to be more so in how you have your progression. So if you have a game like Escape from Tarkov, it doesn't have raids and dungeons of the same variety that Destiny 2 or a looter shooter like that would have. And that's really why I think the transition for Arc Raiders could be really good. The game looks like it could be a ton of fun, and I would really be excited to check it out overall. But again, still some concerns there. We don't know much about it. Now that it has transitioned, we've taken a peek at a little bit of the gameplay, but there's still a lot that remains to be seen with that one. There are also rumors that the PUBG developers are working on a extraction shooter as well, which could be very interesting. They obviously have had success with the Battle Royale, and now looking to make an extraction shooter could be a lot of fun, but I do wonder if that one would be too similar in its more realistic gameplay to something like Escape from Tarkov, whereas a variety of different options are needed. You look at the dominant Battle Royales over the last few years, Warzone feels different than Fortnite, feels different than Apex Legends. And those have been the ones that have been top of the market. And that's really where you're going to have to separate yourself as a extraction game, an extraction shooter, from the competition. So I'm really curious to see how this all shakes out. I do think there's a ton of possibility and potential for this genre. There's a bunch more games potentially coming out as well, and that's really where the crowded market could lead to something of a bunch of games that are pretty solid overall ending up flopping because there's just not enough players to go around for each and every game. You need a healthy player base in order to succeed as an extraction shooter. Otherwise, it's going to feel empty and not fun. So I'm very curious to see how this all shakes out. I'd love to hear from you guys on what you guys think about the future of extraction shooters in general. My name is Jopa. I hope you have a good one. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Have a good one, and I'll catch you all later.